All right, we're live. So welcome back to Dapp University. So it's this really funny story. I just realized I pressed my recording button instead of the live stream button. So I've literally just been sitting here like talking to myself for a solid minute, waiting for people to join. But now we're actually going to get started for real. So today we're going to start off with some announcements about this channel, about what you should expect over the next week or so. We're going to talk about some major news items that have happened in the space since our live stream yesterday. Again, we do these live streams Monday through Friday on this channel. Just subscribe, turn on notifications. You'll find out about those whenever we go live. We're going to check on the crypto markets, answer some of your questions, and a whole lot more. So if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to learn how to master blockchain step-by-step start to finish, then head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. Last but not least, like nothing, and I'm saying this video does not be financial advice, and there's lots of scammers down in the comment section below. Just ignore them. Like, I'm never going to give you my phone number on YouTube or ask you to invest with me. I'm never going to DM you, like none of that stuff. So just ignore anybody who tries to do that. So we got people jumping in the chat here. We got David Stone, Lee Robert, Kurok, hope I'm saying that right, Daryl, Natasha, Adrian, Cryptechnology, Daryl, Camille, Professor J, Wendy, welcome. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this. So let's start off with a really quick bit of housekeeping, some news about the channel over the next week. So I will not be live streaming on Thursday or Friday. This is Thanksgiving holiday inside the United States. So I'm going to take some time off from YouTube. I will release some videos during that time, okay? But I will not be doing our live stream that we normally do on Monday through Friday. Just Thursday or Friday, we'll be back to our normal schedule the following Monday. So definitely you can expect that to continue on. So definitely check out if you're on the email list and you've got the announcement about Black Friday, that's still on the table. So definitely keep an eye on your inbox for this Friday. We'll also have some videos coming out about that as well, about how you can get in on the Black Friday deal. So definitely keep an eye out. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into our news items that have happened in the space since yesterday. Check on the crypto markets, answer some of your questions, all that type of stuff, okay? So let's actually start off with, let's just see here. Hold on one second. My streaming software here messed up on me. Give me one second. All right, so I actually want to start off with something that has been floating around on Twitter that I think can connect the dots for a lot of people and kind of help you understand why I'm so bullish, especially around Ethereum technology long term, despite all these other layer one blockchains popping up that are trying to do a very similar type of thing that Ethereum does. And that's really got to do with the fees for the Ethereum protocol in the first place. Okay, and I've seen this floating around, and this is something that I just want you to understand when you're talking about, which blockchain should I use, which project should I be in, all that type of stuff. One of the biggest complaints about Ethereum is that it's too slow and it's too expensive to use. And I really want to talk about the expensive parts, so the fees. Okay, so a lot of people think this is really bad for Ethereum, and in one sense it is, but it's not completely bad because the fees are ultimately an indication of demand. Number one, to actually make transactions on the Ethereum network, because Ethereum gets more expensive to use the more people try to use it at the same time. It's a supply and demand mechanism, basically, that charges you for the fees that you pay on the network. Sort of like saying, and the other thing is because the cryptocurrency itself is becoming more valuable. All right. So it's sort of like saying, New York is too expensive, like nobody wants to live there, right? Like that's just that's opposite thinking, right? Same thing like, this restaurant's too crowded, like nobody wants to go there. Well, it's crowded because people want to go there. New York's expensive because people want to live there, all that type of stuff. So the reason I bring it up is because other blockchains also have this problem, okay? So, you see lots of other blockchains come up and say, hey, we're cheaper to use. Our transaction fees are going to be lower, all the type of stuff. Well, part of that's because it hasn't received significant adoption yet. Okay, so I actually want to bring up this tweet that can help you kind of see this. So this is talking about like Avalanche fees for swaps were $20. Okay, so they're talking about basically just trading tokens on a DEX. I realize Ethereum's fees are still significantly more expensive that, especially in some cases, depending on what you're trying to do. My point here is not to talk about, hey, the fees for Ethereum are an issue. What I'm saying is lots of people suffer from this problem, and the crypto, the other layer one blockchains that, are trying to do the same things, are starting to see that same problem, okay? And that kind of eats into the value proposition, that they've tried to talk about to acquire initial users, okay? So, now, do a little thought experiment here. Let's just say that, the demand for the network stays the exact same and the cryptocurrency price 10x's. Well, then that swap's going to be $200. Okay, so let's be even a little more realistic and say the network activity doubles and the price increases by 5x. Then you have the exact same problem. It's 10 times as expensive to do something simple, which gets pretty close to the same problem that you have with Ethereum. So, again, my whole point is not to single out any project or to say that, like, hey, this is bad, this is never going to work. That's not what I'm trying to say here. What I'm saying is lots of things suffer from the exact same problems. Blockchain scalability has the scalability trilemma of decentralization, security, and scalability. And, we all have something very, very challenging to crack here. And so the reason that I would say is, like, you go to these rabbit holes and you kind of see that other people have this problem. It's like, well, that's one of the reasons I'm so bullish on Ethereum long term, is because their solution to this is to basically create these layer 2 scaling solutions where you can offload a lot of this activity and put it on a separate platform, and then stick with an ecosystem that has a really long history, also lots of security and decentralization at the base layer itself. Okay, so that being said, I realize that other ecosystems have different answers to this. That being said, lots of other ecosystems are coming up with answers that look pretty similar to the types of things that Ethereum is trying to do. I think lots of people are embracing L2s or layer 2 scaling solutions in some form or fashion. I know that Avalanche has their kind of unique answer to some of this type of stuff. I'm not going to get into all that. But this is just a problem that I've been talking about for a long time, and you're starting to see it play out in real time. And I just wanted to bring it to your attention so that you can kind of understand how this world works, because everybody has technical limitations despite what they might try to tell you in their marketing pitch. And it's not always the people who create the technology. Sometimes it's just the communities around it, right? So I'm not trying to single out organizations or anything like that necessarily. It's just you have to be discerning. And at the end of the day, I always try to teach you technical skills on this channel so that you can do that yourself. The more you understand, the less people can, pull the wool over your eyes. Put it that way. Okay, so let's go ahead and check on a couple other pieces of news items here. Well, one big developing story that I saw on CoinDesk this morning, again, this is developing. We don't know how far this is going to go, but this is Indian government to submit bill to ban most cryptocurrencies, dashing hopes for friendlier measures. Not the first time we've seen this for sure. So this is the same bill that was drafted and submitted in January, and lots of expectations had grown that the government would submit a final version that would be more accommodative to crypto. It doesn't look like that's the case, though. So we'll see what happens. But this is definitely something that we would keep our eye on. And surprise, surprise, the bill would create a central bank digital currency by the Reserve Bank of India, and then basically wants to create that and then ban all private cryptocurrencies. So again, this is a developing story. It'll be updated, so we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but this has been in the works for quite some time, and so dashed our hopes that this would change. So I don't think this is bearish globally for crypto or anything like that. I think in many cases, a lot of governments trying to ban crypto is going to be it's kind of like shooting yourself in the foot. I think it's one of those things where you're trying to cut your citizens off from something that is going to be widely adopted across the world, something that's going to create a massive amount of wealth, something that's going to create a massive amount of economic activity, yeah, all that stuff. I think it's, I don't know that it's going to be permanent, put it that way. Somebody says government banned it, but court said you can't. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and check on the let's go ahead and just check on crypto, see what it's doing here. We'll do a quick update. So things are about the same as they have been all week. All right. So we've kind of been range bound for the past 7 days, slightly bearish maybe in the Bitcoin price. Maybe some slightly bearish trends across the board here, but generally everything's been, except for Elron. Elron's been pretty bullish here. Generally speaking, everything's kind of flat, maybe a little bit bearish, but kind of flat. So what's my big picture outlook on where things are headed? I don't have any reason to think that, we're going to just nuke or anything like that from here. Again, think about all these things in terms of probability. So my thesis is still intact that we're, on an upward trajectory in the Bitcoin price and other major cap cryptocurrencies, not necessarily everything, but generally speaking, the crypto market is continuing to trend higher because of the adoption that's taking place underneath and that value actually occurring, the crypto assets themselves that are integrated into these networks, okay? So nothing about that thesis has changed. These types of blowups happen, okay? Sometimes we get something even a little scarier than this. But even when this happened, we have recovered and seen things, appreciate in price significantly after that. So I just don't think we've seen anything absolutely crazy euphoric in order to merit a long-term correction of some kind. Again, that could always change if we have some sort of global event that affects all markets. I don't think that crypto would necessarily be immune to that either. So somebody says looks like the same dip from September 15th to September 19th. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Okay, so let's do a couple questions here. We'll get into some more news updates. So I did get a question this morning on my Twitter, so let's just go ahead and answer this real quick. So question was, is it possible to write a smart contract that connects with the YouTube API and automatically do transactions if, yeah, so basically automatically do transactions. I'm not sure what the condition here is, but basically if you want to fetch information from the YouTube API and then do something inside your smart contract, yeah, you can definitely do that. But it just depends on what you want the end value to be to the user. So if it's something like issue an NFT or something like that, you could definitely do that. The problem is you just want to make sure that you're not, you got two big problems on your hands. One is you want to make sure that the data that you get back from the API is good. You know what I mean? That YouTube's serving you the right information before you just do a blockchain transaction, because that could be disastrous if you inject bad data into a blockchain because you can't change it once it's in there. And you could override it if it's in something that you allowed to be overridden, but still it's going to be expensive to try to update those transactions. That's not necessarily just from the YouTube API serving you bad data, but if you write bad software that takes the information and doesn't check for null and stuff like that could be bad. So that's one thing to think about. The other possibility is, if you make API calls from a smart contract, then you need to use an Oracle for that. You could always just do something off-chain if it's just a centralized product like an NFT issue or something like that. You could just create a bot that pulls the information from YouTube and then issues NFTs based on certain conditions. So it depends on what it is, but that's generally speaking, that's what I would say off the top of my head. So, all right, so let's look at a couple other news updates. We'll do a quick experiment here. We'll do a segment. All right, we'll turn this into a real show with sections, and we'll do an experiment here called Follow the Money, where we basically look at what massive private equity investors are doing and where they're putting money in crypto to help you sort of forecast what the hot use cases are, okay, and see what people are wanting to back. So right now, Origin Foundation secures $20 million in funding for NFT-based authentication certificates. Okay, so this is pretty interesting. 20 million raised from all these backers. Okay, basically uses non-fungible tokens as digital certificates to identify and authenticate luxury, physical, and digital goods. So the foundation says that, okay, so basically we've seen this kind of before, but we haven't really been in the cultural place where people are kind of hungry for NFTs and their novel use cases to actually see this stick. Because honestly, a lot of stuff people are doing with NFTs like now, we've been talking about for a really long time, like since like 2017, 2018. And now it's just that they're getting adoption and there's actually demand for some of these use cases. Because, I mean, a lot of this stuff in crypto, people thought up a long time ago. It's just like, who's going to do it? Like, we didn't have the users yet. So now we kind of have the users, and we're starting to see some of these NFT use cases take off beyond just like digital collectibles. And this particular use case is basically having a certificate of authenticity that's digital record for a physical good. Okay, so we talked about this for a long time, but it looks like this is kind of starting to gain some traction. We're actually getting some funding for these types of ideas. All right, so next thing here in the follow the money segment is going to be this. So basically, we got big backers for a new NFT platform. Okay, Royal and $55 million Series A. Okay, so basically, Royal is a starter for a marketplace for building digital assets tied to music artists. Has secured $55 million. Okay, so basically, Royal aims to provide artists with a way for music artists to share ownership of their music with fans by issuing digital collectibles and non-fungible tokens. So in a sense, the firm's offering is illustrated by the recent, okay, so basically, the whole idea is Web3 based. So the Web3 kind of reinvents the business model from somebody in the middle owning everything and profiting to like we all are in this together and we all profit together and we all, get value by participating together. So basically the whole idea is you as a creator can have ownership over your music, but then your fans can have ownership over the music. And the more demand there is for that, the more valuable this entire thing can become and the more that everybody can like profit from this. Okay. So that's an example of how Web3 can work. And we're seeing that, take place in music. So I was talking about somebody the other day about this, who's a music background, and just talking about everything that is possible with NFTs. Because at the end of the day, everything that can be tokenized is likely going to at least be tried to get tokenized, okay? And, the real hurdle in many cases for intellectual property is going to be just whatever the existing regulations are. Can you legally do it without, getting served? You know what I mean? So I'll be curious to see what the regulatory hurdles are for intellectual property around things like this. So we'll have to wait and see. But I do think that everything that can be tokenized is going to get tried. And I think music is no exception. So another big raise in terms of follow the money. Again, following the money is what are the new ideas that are receiving funding in crypto. So Ethereum Layer 2 developer Starkware raises $50 million, now valued at $2 billion. Okay, so Starkware is a Layer 2 scaling solution. Again, talking about how do you make Ethereum cheaper to use, faster. You build a Layer 2. You build a second environment where you can do transactions that get settled back on the main Ethereum blockchain itself. There's lots of different ones out there. Starkware is a pretty prominent one. And they just raised $50 million. So people are putting massive amounts of cash behind the Ethereum Layer 2 ecosystem. That's the big takeaway from this. Again, just a little experiment today. Follow the money. Where are people raising massive amounts of capital from, seeing these huge valuations? What are the ideas that's actually attracting this money? Well, maybe these are the things that you should be paying attention to in this space. So somebody has a question in the chat here. How do you like the rebranding of crypto to Web3? Starting to see a lot of people talk about blockchain and crypto as Web3 instead of the word crypto. It's a good question. So, I have a couple thoughts on it. Well, I've also seen a lot of takes flying out there online. One is like if we start talking about things in terms of Web3, it definitely helps people who just associate crypto as a scam. They get to sort of capitulate with honor, and with some dignity intact, and say, okay, so it's Web3, and we can accept that Web3 is a thing, and that way they don't have to feel bad about, calling crypto a scam forever, okay, or just like, throwing shade at crypto or fading it or whatever you want to call it, right? So that's a benefit, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, I mean, to me, I think there's so much benefit behind the world moving in the direction of Web3. There's going to be some trade-offs for sure. Definitely some downsides. But I still think that we can have a net positive change towards the Web 3.0 world. And rebranding it can help, facilitate some of that. I'm trying to think of maybe some other things to say in there. I don't have too many thoughts beyond that. Will layer 2 migration cause fees to increase? It depends on what you mean by that. Like, generally speaking, will Ethereum be more expensive to use? Well, it won't matter as much if you are using the Ethereum layer 2 because it will be cheaper for you to use once you're on that environment. Now, there'll be a cost to pay to get from layer 1 to layer 2, but we did see yesterday that more exchanges are starting to integrate layer 2 functionality into their exchanges. We saw it with Binance. Now it's just deposits. So if you start using Binance with Arbitrum, you can only send money there. Can't get it off into Arbitrum. But yeah, we're starting to see that. So that could be an option for people who want to onboard onto layer 2s, is just to use an exchange and withdraw directly to the layer 2 of choice. Should more people be building on layer 2? Generally speaking, yes. We are but we're still, in my opinion, we still haven't really reached the inflection point of layer 2. Starting to see its sort of real boom. I mean, we're starting to see trends higher in terms of TVL, in terms of more transactions. I talked earlier this year, one of my predictions for 2021 is that we'd see wide layer 2 adoption. I don't think we're quite there yet. Okay, that's okay. I mean, we're not far away from that. Not like just, we haven't had any massive upsets about that. It's just some of this stuff takes longer than a lot of people actually think. I mean, that's kind of, software is notorious for being hard to estimate in terms of the timeline, the effort, all that type of stuff. So I don't think we're quite there yet. So some person's question is, should more people build on L2? Well, it's kind of this like dilemma. It's right. Well, you should start building on it when more people start building on it, but who's going to start, right? Well, people who have strong incentives to start are going to do that. And we're already starting to see that with early adopters. But, if you're a developer, then definitely like experiment, try things. You could do it on a test network. It's not going to hurt you. So somebody says, what about the Tether bubble being rumored to burst? Been talking about it for years. Still hasn't happened. Somebody says, with Ethereum promising interest rates for staking on 2.0, do you think the government will crack down on it, and can they shut it down because it's built on Amazon websites but on centralized server? So what they're saying is, because Ethereum has yield, are they going to classify it as a security, basically? And basically, if they do that, can they shut it down because nodes run on AWS? That's what they're saying. So there's a couple things in there. We don't really have 100% certainty on the government's view of it whenever it turns into E2.0 and actually produces yield. I mean, we have a strong indication. I think it's probably not going to happen. We've seen favorable comments about Ether in the past from different regulatory bodies. Okay. That being said, I mean, nobody knows 100% sure what's gonna happen going forward. Now, in terms of shutting it down, what you're talking about is a certain number of nodes operating on basically somebody else's servers. So the most ideal scenario is to run your own node on your own computer that you control. Okay. Now, some people bypass this step and they run a node in the cloud. They do it on somebody else's servers. So what they're saying is, hey, could somebody come in and say, either you have to shut that part of your server down, or the company that you're running your server on just shuts it down because they don't want to deal with the problem when they see that you have traffic coming in and out that's making requests like that. So if that were to systematically happen, or systemically happen, I guess you should say, on different hosting providers, I don't think the Ethereum network is vulnerable enough for that to just take the entire network down. I mean, a certain amount of nodes would go offline. Those nodes could be restarted some other way. We could completely lose those nodes and it'd probably be fine. But it's a good question. Any update on Black Friday? Definitely keep an eye out for later this week. Somebody says, I do think we will test resistance one more time before the end of the year. Yeah, we might. In terms of the crypto prices. Somebody says, I recently read that once we host our smart contracts to the mainnet, we can't change them like we can change the back end of the code, only the front end. How do devs work this out? So smart contracts in and of themselves are immutable, which means they cannot change. So if you create a basic smart contract, I'll say like a cryptocurrency, for example, you put it on the blockchain, it's there. You can't change the code, okay? So this is a feature, not a bug. That's the whole idea. It's a smart contract. The contract's not supposed to change. That's what minimizes the trust. Now, that being said, you can actually create a smart contract that's upgradable in how you design the software itself, okay? Now, in an ideal world, you have transparency about this as an end user, and you can still see what the smart contract code is on the blockchain. I know everybody can't make sense of what's there, but there's still benefit in it being open source, and you can actually, somebody who does know what they're doing can audit the code, and that there is this added level of transparency, because you can't go do that with Facebook. You can't see Facebook source code, and even if they did, let's say they open sourced it on GitHub, well, you can't actually verify that what's on GitHub is exactly what's running on their servers. So with a smart contract on the blockchain, you can see the exact code that's actually running on the blockchain, and know that's what you're using, assuming that you're trusting that Etherscan is telling you the same thing, which there's not a good reason for you to doubt that. So anyways, that being said, you can create a smart contract that's upgradable, that still has this benefit of transparency, even if it's not 100% mutable. So how you do that is there's lots of different strategies. I'll just tell you a very common way to do it. Basically, is you have a smart contract that's the interface, essentially, for your app or your backend, and then that points to an implementation contract where all the code for the internals live. So basically, you might have a smart contract that says like, hey, here's the permanent address for our app. The address is never going to change. Here's the main functions that it has. Maybe those aren't going to change. But then the internals of all that stuff is the code, you know what I mean, that makes the app actually work. And that lives somewhere else, and we could potentially change that. That's one of the most common ways to create an upgradable smart contract. All right, everybody, that's all I got for today. As always, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. That really helps these videos out so that more people can learn about blockchain. And if you're as fast in this technology as I am, you want to get your hands dirty, how can you get started today? Well, you get my YouTube homepage. You can find my free courses there. They're like Udemy courses, but they're totally free. And if you like those and you want to take the next step, or hey, maybe you want to take a massive shortcut entirely, I can become a blockchain master step-by-step start to finish over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. You don't have to be an expert to get started today. I've helped people with zero coding experience become real-world blockchain developers in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. And until next time, thanks for watching Dapp University.